there. And then from there, power on EVE-NG. Get some water. Water is good. I'm actually feeling a bit cotton mouth. So we got good old EVE-NG starting up. I might want to download a couple of new MikroTik images as well. I saw that they have made some extra changes on mikrotik.com. Let's just find some new software. I think it's version 7.18 already. That's pretty neat. Let's find ourselves a CHR and just download the raw disk image. And once that's been downloaded, my EVE-NG seems to be spazzing out a little bit. Hope I didn't break it. Doesn't seem like it. It looks fine. Although I might be able to do some updates. So let's maybe just do that. Update. And do an upgrade as well. And I've downloaded the new MikroTik image. Let's just grab that here and extract it quickly. And then I can also just bring this across onto EVE-NG. Oh, there was a release upgrade as well, but I'm not going to do that now. Anyways, let's just head on to WinSCP. And I know that I've actually changed my IP for my EVE-NG server. I think it's what is it now? 252 or 25 something. I should be able to just see it on the EVE login. Although it's busy doing this now. All right, let's just have a look at ifconfig. I think it's pnet 0 88.248. All right, that's pretty easy. 248. Let's try and log in. There we go. Let's just log in. And it would help if I create a new directory for this as well. So let's take a quick look. If I go onto Eve, I can just do a little make directory, opt unitlab add-ons, Kemu, and let's create a MikroTik 7.18. What was this, beta 6 or something? I think. Let me just double check. Beta 6, yeah. And then we're just going to do the good old presto of copying the image across. Let's just refresh this, find the new folder, and then I can just drag and drop this across. And now we can just quickly go into that directory. 7.18 beta 6. And I think this drive is called the HDA, if I remember correctly. So let's just move that to be HDA, or move the image to be HDA.qcow2. And there we go. And then I can just do a little permission refresh. OPT unitnet wrappers, UNL wrapper, fix permissions. Cool. So I'm not that rusty. I kind of still remember what to do on Eve. Although I know that I haven't been labbing as actively as I should. So this should at least make up for some of this lost time. Hey Gareth, thanks for joining. So this stream is just me basically checking what the stream is actually looking like, just testing the quality and stuff. But I'll mainly just be putting some stuff in EVE-NG, maybe having a look at some of the new features on MikroTik as well. I know that they've made some changes to how you can do some stuff with the VLANs. I know I saw MikroTik make some update video about it, but I just want to have a quick look myself and see what they were actually talking about. And just maybe set up a few labs and topologies and stuff like that. It's, you know, just those type of things that I usually get into. So maybe just get a little MPLS network running. Maybe even do a little bit of multi-vendor type of stuff so that it's not just a MikroTik device. Because I have been playing around with a few other pieces of equipment. I mean, the company I'm working for now mainly does Juniper equipment, so I've been doing so much on Juniper now, but there's new things like I don't know if you know about the white box networking where you get IP Infusion with OCNOS, it's called. It's kind of like this network operating system that you can just load on these white boxes, these empty tins. It kind of works like Cisco and it runs really well, but it's kind of weird to figure out as well. So I might want to play around with that as well, because a lot of people seem to be leaning into using it a lot. So I might just do it for interest sake as well. We even have a few of those devices as well, but I'm not like proficient in it. I kind of know what's happening with my base understanding, but I'm not really that proficient with it yet. All right, let's see if I can get into my EVE-NG now. That should be the next step. I'll just bring the window over for you guys. 88.248. And let's just use the native console. See what you work now. How does Juniper compare to MikroTik? Heard some ISPs in SA dropping Juniper for MikroTik purely for features and price. That doesn't surprise me, to be honest, because from a price perspective, MikroTik is way cheaper than Juniper, and feature-wise, it's almost at the same level, almost. Juniper still excels with a lot of stuff, and it has a lot of newer features. It's very mature when it comes to stuff like IS on the routing side, as well as some of the newer things like eVPN. Even though I shouldn't say newer things, because eVPN is already almost like 10 years old, apparently. But yeah, no, on a feature level, MikroTik does compare really well. I'm really not surprised. I think if you're running even a medium-sized ISP, pure MikroTik could potentially be fine. But if you're doing like these big ISP things, we've got thousands and thousands of customers, and maybe you run hundreds of points of presence, then I think Juniper probably excels for stuff like that. But don't get me wrong, I ran a small ISP using MikroTik, and it was fine. It was good. We didn't need Junipers to do ISP things. I think the good comparison is like with MikroTik. What I really like about it is where there's a will, there's a way. You know, it's like that open source type of mentality where you if you want to really make something work, you can. It's just going to maybe take a little bit of time or tinkering or just testing the water with a few different things, or even maybe kind of Frankensteining some features together to make it work. But MikroTik will get you there as well. I think I created that as a new lab, but let's just create a new fresh canvas completely. So let's just call this new MikroTik stuff. So I really just want to have a look at what I think what MikroTik said was you could do something with the VLANs on a interface list level almost. I need to double check that. I'm not 100% sure what they were talking about. So let's just bring in a couple of MikroTiks. Maybe 4 CPUs, 2, 4, like that, and that should get us started. So let's just connect these little devices together. That's a fair point. So I think with a lot of, I don't want to say third world countries, but in South Africa, and I know a lot of other places like Indonesia specifically, they also use mainly like MikroTik devices. So I think something like a MikroTik certification might get you actually a bit further than having a Juniper certification. But on that front, I think when it comes to learning a lot of the new, I shouldn't say new stuff, just the core networking fundamentals, maybe a Juniper or even Cisco cert is still worthwhile because it really drills down on some specific things that MikroTik really just doesn't. Because let's be honest, if you've been to a MikroTik training session, like you go for a couple of days, and if you already understand networking, it's like just to learn how to do these things on a MikroTik, and then you get certified. But for somebody that's completely fresh and they're trying to figure out how TCP/IP works, like MikroTik makes that a little bit difficult. But I think MikroTik even says in their, I shouldn't say their guidelines or something, but they say you should already know how stuff like TCP/IP and subnetting works before you attend the course. So it's definitely not for somebody that's completely new to the field, but you know, we all need to learn somewhere. And I think a lot of people in the ISP space starting newly now with new ISPs will see a lot of MikroTik equipment, especially for wireless ISPs. I knew quite a few big wireless ISPs in South Africa that used mainly MikroTik as the routing equipment, but they used to use other vendors for the actual dishes, for the wireless services, the links, to build their towers and put up these little links at the customers' houses. I think they mainly used stuff like Ubiquiti or what's that other vendor with the C, like Camdian or Cam something. But that seemed to work really well. But wireless is such a difficult subject for me because it's easy to just get things maybe to connect, but the moment you start working with stuff like interference and weird radio levels and licensed spectrum and stuff like that, it gets really awkward for me, especially if you are in a place where there is stuff like a lot of interference. It makes it really difficult. Let me just connect these devices. So now I'm just chatting away. Yeah, Gambia, that's it. And Radwan, yes, Radwan as well. I've seen that. I haven't actually worked on a Radwan thing before, but I've seen that name pop up a few times. And I completely agree. I think in the video that I posted to announce that I'm starting to do live streams again is that training is crazily expensive at the moment. I know before I left South Africa, it was around 7,000 just for the MTCNA training. It's for somebody that's think about like some 18-year-old just coming out of school and it's their first job that they're trying to get, or they want to get into networking. Like I know when I just got out of school, I didn't have 7,000 lying around to just go on a training camp, and I wish I did, but that's kind of like the point why I make these videos as well. Yeah, I think with networks are a nightmare. At least the ISP that I was working for wasn't really a WISP. It was more or less relying on layer 2 services from other fiber providers. So they mainly connected with ISPs like Vox and Bitco and those people to bring in these fiber connections into the data centers in Terraco, if you know where that is. And then basically just have these NNIs to them with VLANs, and then we just had these links with all of these customers, because we didn't actually put our own fiber or anything in the ground. We really just kind of leased their lines and just ran our own layer 3 networks across it, if that makes sense. Which I think is actually pretty common practice, to be honest. Not a lot of small ISPs have the capital to just put down their own fiber or build their own fiber network. I have no idea what I just connected to each other. Either 1, 2, there, that's fine. Okay, cool. All right, let's just start these devices up and have a look and see what's going on. Yeah, if they pay for the course, go for it. Like, enjoy it. Go on, get into a fancy hotel and enjoy like free dinners and stuff like that. That's my viewpoint when it comes to, if the company can pay for it, then enjoy yourself and don't feel too bad about it. But if you're on it like solo, then just, that's again why videos like this exist, so that it just helps people get into the stuff and figure it out, because I know personally how, I don't want to say a confusing MikroTik can be, but there's a lot of pitfalls that you can step into if you don't work with it often. Oh, that's my own MikroTik. My little, is it? No, it is my own MikroTik, my HAP-AX3. Ah, I'm being silly. I need to just connect onto the management network, because I do want to see what this looks like on Winbox. Although we could figure this out on the command line as well. No, it's alright, Gareth. I enjoyed the chat. It's really nice talking to you. Like, what you're saying makes complete sense to me. Like, Dark Fiber Africa, I think they were having a little bit of issues before I left South Africa, but I think they were maybe even being half bought over by somebody. I'm not sure if that actually happened. I just remember that they were having some issues before I left. But yeah, you either get that. To be honest, I have considered becoming a MikroTik trainer, like going to Latvia, since it's pretty much like a 2-hour flight from where I am now. And it would be feasible. It's just I need to now put out time for that. But it kind of also almost defeats the purpose of the stuff that I'm trying to do, because if I do become a trainer, then I'd most likely want to sell training sessions as well, like most of the trainers, and then it just feels like I'm kind of doing the stuff that everybody else is doing. Even though I would love an additional income like that, if I was to swap careers, then that's totally what I would do. I would become a trainer, and then that would be my gig if I didn't actually have a day job. But yeah, we will figure it out. We'll see how it goes. But I do enjoy my day job, to be honest. Oh, all right, Maziv. I don't remember what the company's name was. I just remember that they were having a lot of issues. Like, they couldn't even hold up to their own SLAs, and it was getting really messy dealing with them. Like, a link would go down. It would take them like 2 or 3 days to just get somebody to site to have a look and see what's happening. It's so silly, actually. Let's see. I should see this device in Winbox now. I do. And let's just log in. So what was MikroTik saying about the VLAN stuff? I think a good thing for me to do might just be to go onto their documentation. One thing I want to check before I do that is if I log... Okay, that's fine. My font looks good for putty. Alright, let's see if I can get onto their documentation, help.mikrotik.com/docs. And what were they talking about the VLAN stuff? Because here I can see somebody updated the... But that's quite recent, they updated that. I might even find it on the MikroTik channel. Hang on a sec. Let me just see. Even though I don't want to just play the full video, let's just go onto the MikroTik channel quickly.
Hello, dear friends. What I'm holding here is the living proof.
From the
well, not living.
Channel. Where was it? I think it was this. Interesting changes. Just want to see
the router's version 717.
Sorry if it is making a bit of noise. Just gonna pop on this headset as well so I can actually hear. Oh, did I just power it off?
The right path to enlighten on some grandiose changes. It finally has a new modern look.
No, I don't.
Quick security. As you know, it is used to enable more notable changes in this update.
There.
When setting up VLAN, you can now use interface lists for ease of configuration. For example, when specifying tagged ports, you no longer have to add them one by one. You could just add a pre-configured list. The router's console has several small changes. There's a new range command that can loop through integers. The print command now has a new parameter group by. It can be used when you need to count
I think they just
or
said
filter
that
out
you
things.
can now
For
use
example,
the interface list
print
do VLANs. Is that, did I understand that right? So it just seems to me like you can now select the interface list and it will apply all of the VLAN tags to it. I think that's what they were saying there. Let me just quickly go into the bridge config. Maybe I'll just change that to that fantastic dark mode so it doesn't hurt people's eyes. Let's just have a look here. So if I go into my VLANs and we add a new one, this is, I'm just guessing this is what they were talking about. Like you can build an interface list and then you can select the interface list instead of having to do each and every individual interface. Let's just see if that is actually the case. I don't think this has an interface list on it, so let's just call this, hang on, let's just interface list. Right. That was actually fairly confusing finding this interface list section in the new inbox. So let's just call this maybe my trust or my LAN or whatever. I think we can just call it that, and then I can just bind my interfaces to my LAN list. So let's maybe say ether. But this is also a little bit, you probably want to use a script to just make this easier to put everything in the same interface list. But again, I'm just guessing this is what they're talking about. Look, I like and dislike the new Winbox, to be honest. I think it did need a little bit of a facelift because it confuses a lot of external people. If you are very comfortable and familiar with Winbox already, like many MikroTik users are, then you know the old Winbox is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It works really well. It's actually one of the best GUIs that I've ever worked on. Like period. I think anybody can agree with that. But I've seen a lot of newer like tech channels on YouTube, and they use MikroTiks, but they don't use it in their daily lives. So they just buy a MikroTik switch, and then when I see them try and configure it, it's super like weird to me, because either they're not using Winbox at all, or if they're using Winbox, they just talk about how they don't understand how it works or how ugly it is and stuff like that. Even though, you know, something shouldn't look pretty in order to be functional, I can see why it puts some new people off of MikroTik. But Webfig, that is some place that I don't like hanging out. Even though it looks like Winbox, it feels awkward for me whenever I work on Webfig. That's why I'm always either on Winbox or on the command line. Even though you can do everything on Webfig as well, it just doesn't have the same functionality. I mean, you can't drag and drop stuff. There's no shortcuts like it is on Winbox. Winbox is so functional. All right, so let me just get back to what I was trying to figure out. You can now create an interface list, and in theory, we should be, let me just create a new bridge as well, whatever the bridge name is. And do you now assign the ports as an interface list, or? All right, so you can assign the LAN as the interface list. I can't remember if you could do that before though. Oh, that's pretty cool. I don't know if you saw what it did there, but it just automatically added Ether 1, 2, and 3 on here as dynamic interfaces. And if we change the PVID, let's just enable, is VLAN filtering enabled now? Man, my eyes are so messed up now. I'm not even sure what I'm doing. It should be that. What am I doing? Where's VLAN filtering? Did I miss it somewhere? Because here we've got a new, oh, you do it on the bridge. I was on the port section. I was being silly. So VLAN filtering, just enable it there. We're using Ether type 0x8100. That's fine. All right, that's perfect. That is actually perfect. Yeah, that's good to disable Webfig. It's such a weird thing. Right, so now the question is, if I go into this LAN interface list, if I change the PVID on here, does it just update it on all of them? It does. All right, that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. And what about the VLANs? Wow, that is really neat. So it's already now gone and created untagged interfaces for VLAN ID 10. So what I could potentially do is I could either just create a new VLAN, still bound to the same bridge. And if I want to tag, let's say, can you tag an interface list? Yes, you can. And then you can say what VLAN ID you want to tag. So maybe I want to tag VLAN 20 and 30. Actually, that's just plus 30, 40, whatever. I just want to see what it does. All right, that's pretty cool. That is really cool. So it's now just tagging it on Ether 1, 2, and 3. I like that. I think that's really neat. I mean, it's not like that much simpler, but it does make it easier. The only downside is, even though they're like, oh, it makes this part easier, where you're adding the VLANs and the ports and all that stuff, you're still having to build the interface list, even though if it's just a switch that you maybe want to use, like an aggregation switch or something, you'll just have a single interface list for your bridge or whatever, have all the ports on it. But I'm still going to have to add all of those interfaces onto the interface list. Or, well, you could use the script, you know, you can use some type of script to just quickly create an interface list and add all of the interfaces to this LAN or switch list or something. Okay, that is pretty neat. I'm happy I saw that. That's pretty cool. So now the question is, can I build a tiny little MPLS lab from this? I just quickly want to actually delete that bridging config I just did, because I don't think I need it for what I want to do. Please don't drop me. Okay, that's fine. Let's just remove that. And I'm going to also just remove these interfaces from this list. Cool, you can shift click as well to select multiple, so that's pretty cool. All right. Multiple instances of all this stuff. What would the use case be for that though? For this new style of doing the VLANs, it's not really a style. And I actually totally agree with you. There is the potential to cause some misconfiguration, because if you accidentally add the wrong interface to an interface list and you're doing your tagging, you might potentially create the wrong type of tags, or you might accidentally add the wrong interface also to that list again, and then you might lose access to the MikroTik, or you might actually bring the connection down. So there is definitely a pro and con. I can see the pro being if you're working on a fresh install and you can just create the list from scratch, that it makes adding things to the bridge and the bridge VLAN menu and the bridge ports menus a lot quicker and easier. Because I think that's what I just kind of saw when I added it now. But just adding things like on that global level can definitely potentially cause some issues if you're not careful. That's at least the way that I see it. Because I can see myself making a mistake, like accidentally adding the wrong interface and breaking things. Like I can see that happening with me. So let's just jump back down, close all of these windows. I've got Ether 1, 2, 3. So all that I want to do now is just quickly some basic configuration. I might do this from the command line since I'm pretty used to that as well. So admin blank, no. Oh, it's doing that awful thing where I need to now restart the MikroTik. this is not really a MikroTik issue. This is more of a virtualization or emulation issue where the command line is just being a bit funky now. Let me just see if the other MikroTiks are doing similar things. Now you're good, and the last one. I actually might want to mute some of the audio, or maybe just change this putty thing to not make a sound. Because I'm pretty sure you can hear if I'm like closing windows and stuff like that. Okay, so I'm just going to restart this one MikroTik quickly. Usually that fixes it, like just stop it, start it again. I'm not sure, Gareth, do you use Eve or anything to do any virtualization or emulation, like labs? Or is everything just practical with you? You just get like a few physical, like small MikroTiks and just lab it like that? Because that's also a fair way to do it. That's pretty cool. Some more people are on YouTube. Hey guys. So let's have a look-see here. Sorry, just watering in. Like sparkling water. And my wife has, but I just took it off her. Alright, let's see, this MikroTik should be back online as well. Yeah, and another thing with like emulation, and this is actually something I've picked up since I've used Juniper, is you might emulate something perfectly in Eve and the lab, and it works 100% fine. And the moment you put that on a real piece of equipment that runs a physical type of switch chip, and there's maybe some code or error on that physical equipment, it completely breaks the logic. Even though the config should work on it, sometimes you need to make some type of workaround, or you need to even maybe upgrade software on the devices. It's the physical world is probably the best way to actually get that real hands-on experience, because there are things that emulated labs like this don't always account for. Okay, let's see, is this back online? It should be. There we go. So let's just do a few things. I'll just do a system identity set name R1. Or maybe let's make it P1. Let's create a little. Maybe we can create one provider router and then two provider edges. Just something very basic, very small to start with. Let's just go back here. Oh, and let's map some stuff out. So maybe let's just figure out what IP addresses we want to use between our links. So maybe we'll do something like 10.0.0.0/30. Make that bold, and just. My Eve looks a bit different than usual. Something looks different here. Let's just add a background color. So let's just maybe make that like purple. Nah, that looks ugly. I don't like that purple. Blue should be good. Yeah, blue's good. And let's just make the text white. And that looks good. So let's just create a few more subnets. I might also want to start doing some labs using IPv6, because surprisingly, a lot of people are starting to use IPv6, even though for the most part networks still run v4. It has caught on a lot, IPv6. A lot of people are actually more actively using it. It's not just a saying anymore that you need to use it. Like, there are people that actually use it now. All right, so that is just this little network. Let's just get the base stuff set up. So IPs, maybe I'll try ISIS, but let's just keep it simple. Use OSPF. Yeah, I'll start with OSPF with some MPLS and just some BGP. Very basic, small setup quickly. So I might make this MikroTik 1 or the P1 a route reflector as well. You'll see as we go how we just connect everything and stitch it together. So back onto here, P1. So what I can do is just do an IP address, add address 10.0.0.1/30. I think I can do /31s on the MikroTik as well, but let's just keep it /30s to be safe, because I have seen issues with /31s with some stuff when it comes to the routing protocols. Yeah, no, I know what you mean, Gareth. Like there's a lot of things that seem to blur the lines when it comes to v6, especially when how it like needs to interact with networks that still run v4. And there's so much ancient technology out there that is so reliant on v4 that it makes the migrations, you know, almost impossible. I'm not even joking. At the previous company I worked for, where I ran the ISP side of things, there were customers that were paying so much money for some IPv4 addresses they got from us, even though they had the possibility to go to v6, and they just wanted to keep those IPs because they can't change those IPs because of the sensitive security type of systems that are so reliant on it, that just even if they updated to a different IPv4 address, it would be like a train smash. So they just paid a like abnormal amount of money just to make sure that they kept the same IP addresses. So that is life. That is the world. That is so weird. And let's see 10. So I'll make this 1 and 5. So 1 was Ether 1 and 5 will be Ether 2. Oh, and while I'm on the planning side of things, let's just add a couple of loopback addresses. So I tend to use this Martian range. I think that's what they like to call it, a Martian address, but I like it. It's still technically private, but that's another weird thing on Juniper. Like if you want to use this type of address, you need to tune something in the configuration to allow it. Otherwise, the routing engine just ignores it. It doesn't install the route at all. All right, so we've got .1. Let's make that .2 and .3. Nice and easy. I might actually move these IPs around a little bit. Here we go. That looks better. So let's just add the IP address as well. And this was one of those other cool things that MikroTik did, where they've got a loopback interface from the beginning. Like you don't need to create a bridge and just fake a loopback address anymore. Okay, so that is my IP addressing done. Let's just add IPs on the other devices. So system identity set name, what's this, PE1. So, IP address, add address, with the 10.0.0.2 on its Ether 1, and then 10.0.0.9 on Ether 2, and then 192.0.0.2 on Allo. Yeah, I actually agree with you, Gareth. Like 100% on that statement. Okay, and now the last router or router, depending on where you're based at the moment. System identity, set name, PE2, IP address, add address 10.0.0. I think this is 6 on Ether 1, and then 10 on Ether 2, and 192.0.0.3 on Allo. Oh, that's another thing when it comes to emulating Juniper stuff. Juniper software, and even maybe the hardware, but the software is very, very sensitive actually. If you just power a device down, like let's just say you just shut it down, you don't gracefully restart or shut down the software, there's a good chance you break that software. It will just like freak out completely and you might have to reinstall. It's very similar to doing a net install on a MikroTik. You just have to boot from Flash and reinstall Juniper basically, or Junos. So weird. If you want to host 10 servers with public IPv4 address on it. Yeah. No. And even in real life, if I just went and just unplugged the power cord out of a Juniper, there is a very small chance that I risk breaking the software. So I've actually seen that happen on a device that I had to do like a software upgrade on, and we unplugged the kettle cord or whatever, the DC power out of it, and it just flipped out. And then we had to do that full manual reinstall using like a thumb drive, like a flash disk in it with Junos installed just to get it back up again. But it's good in that regard. Like there are ways to perform recovery and fix stuff, but that wasn't fun. But in that saying, what I do like about Juniper when it comes to the configuration is the that configuration mode that they put you into. I know it seems like a silly thing to really like, and technically you get that with MikroTik as well if you enter safe mode, but it's cool because you kind of have these two different states of configuration where you actually have configuration that's operating the device and running it, and this configuration file that you're busy updating and changing, it doesn't actually take effect. It doesn't change anything. You can view things, you can look at things, you can still see what the change is going to be before you actually hit that commit button and potentially break things, because I like to review things like 3 times before I hit that commit button, whereas I know with other vendors, you might hit the commit and then there was one thing missing, and then it just kind of breaks and you need to revert things or fix things. So that is one thing that I can really say is pretty cool about Juniper. I know Cisco does it these days as well, but I think Juniper was always like that. Because as funny as it is, I actually worked with Juniper quite a lot as well in the early, let's say 2010s to 2015, around that era or period, because the ISP I used to work for at that time, Vox Telecoms, used a lot of Juniper kit as well. So it was cool to see. Anyways, I'm going off a tangent. Let me just get back on my setup. So I've done my IP addressing. Next step should be our OSPF to just quickly get these devices talking to each other. And that should still be the same. So we've got routing, OSPF. We can just add an instance. I think I can just hit the add button and it should just create it. So routing, OSPF, instance, export. There we go. Got an OSPF instance 1, and that just runs OSPF on v4. It's so funny when you talk networking stuff, like I'm saying I like v4 and just stuff like that, and I think to myself, what would happen if you were just talking to a stranger and you just start throwing all these terminologies at them? Like, would they think you're weird? If you just start talking to them about OSPF, IS, BGP, MPLS, you just throw these words at them. Like, what would a person that doesn't understand networking think? What are you talking about? So let's have a look. See, I've added my OSPF instance. Then I can do my OSPF area. And this I do need to specify. So I can leave the area ID as 0000. I don't need to specify the name, but with MikroTik I tend to just like to create a name as backbone. Type will be default, and the instance is going to be the new instance we just created. So that's fine. And now we just need to do our OSPF template. So routing, OSPF interface template. We can add it. And there's 2 templates I'm going to add. The one for the actual physical interfaces, and then the one for the passive loopback interface. So let's do, our area is going to be the backbone area. And then our interfaces is going to be Ether 1 and Ether 2. And I think I could actually put the loopback address in there as well. I think it actually picks it up by default that it's a passive interface if it's the loopback interface. Let's just test it out. So area interface. I don't think there's anything critical other than that. I mean, yeah, we can use fancy stuff like BFD, or I could set a few other things, but I don't think anything is 100% needed there. Now, all we need to do is the same thing on the other devices. And this is where it might come in handy to just copy some of these commands. Although, if I go here, all right, let's just do it quickly. Let's just type it, routing OSPF instance add. Let's just make it a little bit of a challenge. Routing OSPF area add, area name backbone instance. Routing OSPF interface template add interface equals ether1, ether2, LO, and then our area is our backbone. And then that should actually get us up and running. Hey Zuppy, welcome. So let's have a quick look here. If I just have a look at my OSPF routing, OSPF neighbors, I've got a full adjacency, so that's good. And if we do a route print or IP routing, well, we can do IP route print, but there was something else in the routing menu you can do as well. So if I go routing, route print, this is what I want to print. This is actually a great way to see exactly all of the routes that you're learning and seeing on the network itself. So let's have a quick look here. 10.0.0.0/30, 10.0.0. Okay, so we're learning our OSPF routes, so that's pretty cool. So let's just add the other node, MikroTik 3. Actually, I've added it on MikroTik 3 now. I haven't added it on the... Have I done it on all of them? Hang on, I did do it on all of them. Wow. IP route print. I should have 2 OSPF routes. I do. Although I don't see my... No, I do. I do see a loopback address as well. So 192.0.0.2. I don't see 192.0.0.1. So let's just go on to the first MikroTik. Oh, I haven't added OSPF on this device yet, so that is the issue. Okay, so let's just do a routing OSPF instance add routing OSPF. Then we can do a area add area 0, and then our what was it? Our instance will just be this, and our name will be backbone. And then if we do a routing OSPF interface template, we just add a new template, and this will be our ether1, ether2, and loopback interface, and our area will be our backbone. That looks good. Let's have a look at our routing, route print. Don't see the OSPF routes yet. Now I do. And we're learning all of the loopback addresses. Okay, so we've got IP addressing, we've got OSPF. Now we can just add some MPLS. And then after the MPLS, we can do some BGP, and then we can actually start doing some very cool and interesting things as well. So let's just have a look here. I just want to have a quick look on the channel quickly. Sorry if I need to just quickly mute things as well. So that was the network. Pretty cool. All right, so let's continue here and do the MPLS section. So get onto our devices again. I can just close one of these windows. Sorry for the pop-up sound. So I think for this, what we can do is go into our routing. Actually, I think it's just straight MPLS, isn't it? Yeah. So MPLS. And I haven't had much luck with RSVP or the traffic engineering tunnels on MikroTik. Like, I can get the tunnels working and talking, but it's not working properly in what I wanted to do. That might be some stuff we can lab and figure out as well, but let's just get a basic working setup. So LDP, then we can add LDP, and then we can just set our LSR ID as the loopback address, and we can set our transport address as the loopback address, and that should be it. And then the other thing we can do is MPLS LDP. I'm just going to copy paste this, maybe just to save a little bit of time. So go on to the other MikroTiks quickly. That's PE1. Let me just update the IPs. And there we go. And then I also just need to add my actual MPLS config on the interfaces. So MPLS LDP interface, add interface, and that should be my Ether1 and Ether2. I don't think you can comma it, can you? Does it work that way? If it does, that's pretty cool. I don't think I've actually added it like this. No, it doesn't. All right, I figured as much. So Ether1 and then Ether2. So let's just do the same on the other devices quickly. Grab that, put it on this MikroTik. Just update the transport address. And now it's doing like a weird thing with the command line a bit. I don't know if you guys see that, where it like spazzes out a little, creates some extra space. So let's just go onto our MikroTik 3 and add the same type of thing here. Oh, although it did something weird there. I don't like what it's doing there, so I'm just going to manually add it. So MPLS LDP interface, add interface Ether1 transport 192.0.0.3, and then the same for Ether2, and that should be our MPLS configuration. Yeah, no, for sure. And this I get more on MikroTik. I don't really get these spacing issues, I should say, when I have a Juniper lab running. And I might bring a Juniper up just now so that you can kind of see some of the differences. But I just want to see if the MPLS portion is working. So we can just do something like MPLS forwarding table print. And we're getting some labels. That is perfect. That's actually good. That's what we want to see. I mean, this is like very small right now because we've only got the 3 devices and we haven't actually added any customer services or anything on here, but this is a very good starting point because right now we've got a mini ISP network. Let's just do this. I'm just going to stop these nodes and then I can just give them some names as well. So let's just rename. This one should be our P1. This one will be our P2. And then, well, not P2, that is a PE1. Apologies for that. And then PE2. And now that we've done that, we can start the nodes up again. And then while they're starting, I'm going to just add a Juniper node onto here as well. And this is where you're actually going to see how crazy it is to be labbing Juniper equipment as well, because it's so resource intensive. You see this Juniper vEvo router or router, this thing eats so much memory. Like a single node needs like 8 gig. And even if we don't use the virtual Evo, which is the new version of Juniper, they've kind of like changed some stuff with the operating system. They've kind of split it. You've got you've got like old Junos, and then you've got this new Juniper Evo, which is still Juniper, but they've kind of just migrated to a different, I don't know, something else under the hood, and it just works a little bit differently. But it still does exactly the same stuff. But we've got a few Juniper things here. What I'd recommend to do is do these VMXs. You do get something like a Juniper V router that does the same thing as the VMX, but the VMX is nice because you can actually run a trial license of it and basically have full speed on all of the features, because Juniper does the same thing as MikroTik. You can actually find these images online and you can start the node up, but if it doesn't have the license, it obviously restricts what you can do. So I think all of the speed for the Junipers are also just restricted to 1 megabit, just like the CHRs. So it's really not an issue if you're labbing things, but I mean, it's one of those things that you just need to be aware of. But with this VMX version 18, you can actually load a trial license, and then I think for a month, or it might be 2 months, I don't remember the exact time period, you get full like features, like you can run it like any normal type of Juniper. But obviously version 18 is kind of old now as well, but that is the last version that you can get this trial license on, and it's pretty neat. So I'm going to actually add that. I might add just 1 node so you can see what it's doing. That is, oh, and you'll see there's 2 different things here for Juniper with the VMX, because Juniper kind of lets you work on it on 2 different levels. Even though most networking equipment works like this as well, Juniper clearly lets you know there's a separation between the control plane, which is the stuff that you log into and you edit stuff and you create BGP sessions and those type of things. That is what we as administrators manage. But then there is the underlying thing, the layer 2 stuff, the physical things, the cables, the wires, like how that figures out how to switch the traffic the fastest and the best, and that's its own little sub thing. So you won't ever really come into the VFP or the virtual forwarding plane to configure things, because the VFP is kind of just copying what the VCP is telling it to do. But it's nice to understand there's this separation, because it's that ASIC, it's that integrated type of CPU that is just there for the switching thing. Anyways, I'm going off a tangent there. So let's just add this Juniper. I'll use this version 18 device because it does actually have all of the features that I need or want to show off. And here you can see it's already a bit more lenient, although both of the nodes together is like 6 gig of memory, which is still a lot if you compare it to one of these MikroTiks, which can run on literally like 256 meg of memory. So let's just add another node, the VFP. And let's just make sure it's running the same version, because if it doesn't, that can actually cause some issues. And I'm just going to create this internal link between the control plane and the forwarding plane. And this is another one of those cool things that I maybe want to show you. So if you go onto the MikroTik website and you look at like although I've shown this in videos before, but the block diagram, it's so cool to see this because Juniper is effectively doing exactly this as well. If I just go on to maybe like one of the bigger CCRs, maybe like the 2116, if we find the block diagram, you see this internal link to the CPU. That is basically what the Juniper is doing. So you've got the CPU, which is that control plane, and then it's got an internal link to the actual switch chip, which goes to the physical ports to just forward all of that stuff. It's so cool. It's such a silly thing to like think is cool, but I think it's really cool. So I'm just going to start up this Juniper, but this is, we're also going to see another stark contrast between Juniper and MikroTik. This device is going to take considerably longer to boot up. I can actually open it up on console, and you'll see it's actually going to be busy installing Juniper onto the device. And I think this process actually takes a couple of minutes, to be honest. This might just be because this is not like a first time setup for the node, so you can kind of like treat it as a reloading Junos on a piece of hardware. It is a little bit faster the second time you boot it up, but it still takes quite considerably longer booting up from Juniper. But let's just connect this Juniper to something. I'll just connect this to the provider equipment as well, to the core device. So let's just go GE000 onto Ether 3. All right, and we won't sit and watch this the whole time because this is going to take a little bit of time. Like, I'll come back to this in a minute. So we do still have a bit of work we can do with this little ISP network in the middle. I can maybe just do the BGP like I said I wanted to add. And for that, we could add the route reflector. So I'll set up this P1 as a route reflecting device, and then just reflect routes to provider edge 1 and provider edge 2. So let's do that. So, oh, did I close all of the other windows? I probably did when I shut down these nodes. Okay, cool. Admin blank, no new password. So let's do the provider one. I said I'm making a route reflector as well. Even though this is probably not something you'll do in the real world, you'll have a completely separate device acting as a route reflector. Like, it would be something that's not forwarding traffic, or there's no transit traffic going through the links. It's just there to do the BGP route reflection. But since this is just a lab, this is fine to do it this way. So what we could do is routing BGP connection, and then we can add a new BGP connection. And here is where there's a bunch of stuff that we can specify. I actually think the router ID automatically gets used at whatever is bound on that Allo interface. It used to be whatever your first bridge interface is. So to answer your question, Gareth, are you working as a core network engineer in your new country? And the answer is yes. I do work as a core network engineer. I think my title is more or less a NOC engineer, but the NOC usually has many meanings in the in the ISP space. But yes, I look after like the core network itself. I just make sure the core links work and all of the nodes function, and there's no funny business happening. Like, that is really my role and responsibility. There's a bunch of other cool stuff that we do as well, but a lot of the customer facing type of services, where you might maybe configure services to a customer, like their link stuff, that has kind of gone away from what I used to do when I was in South Africa. But when I was in South Africa, when I was running that ISP network, it was really just like me doing everything almost. So I was very involved with every little aspect of everything. Whereas now I'm more or less just making sure that the company I work for, our core network works fine. And then like there's other teams that will be responsible for looking after customers, links, and things like that. Even though I'm there to help and be an escalation point and stuff like that, I'm less involved with customer setups and projects. I'm just mainly looking after the core network. But that's just as fun, I can tell you that. Like a nice big core network, it's really busy and it's really cool to see all of this stuff happening. Anyways, let's just add our BGP stuff. So I've got a router ID. Let's just leave the router ID. I'm pretty sure it's going to just automatically set it to the loopback interface. I just want to see if it actually does. And then what we can do is set some address families. Now this is just letting us know what we want BGP to be able to carry. And it might carry a few bits of information, but we might want to do IP, we might want to do IPv6, we might want to do some layer 2 VPN stuff, we maybe want to do some VPN v4, and I saw you can do VPN v6 as well, which we might test out later on, but definitely not tonight. There's way too much other stuff happening. So let's just add our address families. Then the other stuff we can add is we could add our local address, which is basically just our update source, which should be the loopback address as well. You know what else I could do is I could create a BGP template actually. Let's do that. That's going to be cool to do as well. So if I go BGP, I could add a template, and the template will just hold various bits of information that I can then easily assign to any of my other peers or any of my other neighbors. So what I can, well, it is a peer, it's not a neighbor when it comes to BGP. So I can define what my autonomous system is going to be, so that I might just keep as 65,000. I tend to just use that in labs a lot. And then we can do some stuff like our address families, what address families we want to use. And the VPN-v4. But this would be so cool if Juniper, or not Juniper, if MikroTik had eVPN here as the address family. Like that's what everybody's kind of pushing for at the moment. And if you follow some of the other bigger MikroTik people as well in the space, like Kevin Myers from the US, he posted a recent thing where MikroTik on their forums basically said they are busy working on eVPN on MikroTik, and that would definitely put it up with all of the big vendors. If they have that address family released, it's you really there's no reason not to use MikroTik. If cost is something that you're very conscious about, then MikroTik is definitely, I'd say, the preferable choice. Anyways, we're adding our address, our autonomous system, our address families, anything else we want. We can use everything else as the defaults here. I actually think that should be fine. We just want to set our autonomous system and our address families in this regard. Oh, give it a name, AS65000. So then what we could do is do a routing BGP connection. We could add a new BGP connection. And then we can set our... Could I set my local address in the template? It doesn't seem like it. Looks like that's something that you need to do on a peer level. Okay, that's fine. So what we can do is just do a local address, and that will be 192.0.0.1. Let's just say the template we're going to use is the AS65000. So that just basically specify our AS number and our address families. And router ID, I said I'm going to leave blank. And we can set our, what is it? Local role. And that is going to be a ibgp-rr because this is going to be a route reflector. And it is IBGP since we're going to be connecting to our own autonomous system. So that's fine. And we don't need to specify the local port. We'll use the default. And add path is cool as well, but I'm not going to add path. So we can specify our remote address, and that is going to be the IP of our neighbors. So that's going to be 192.0.0.2. And our remote AS, I think it can figure out the remote AS if I remember correctly, if it looks at some of the BGP messages. So let me just leave that blank for a second. I just want to test this out and see what it does. And router ID set I'm going to leave blank. Let me just give it the name P1 to PE1. Alright, so add that, and let's just update it. Add .3. There we go. Cool. That's as easy as it is. So if I look at my routing BGP and I export this config, you can see I've got a template which is just basically there to set what the address families are as well as what my autonomous system is. And then I've specified what my BGP is connecting to, what my role is, and what the remote address is. And then I'm just saying I'm using this template in order to basically propagate some of the information. So that is fine. Let's just add BGP config on. Let's just see. Oh, wow, this Juniper is actually done. If you're not aware, with the Junipers, when you log in for the very first time, you'll see there's this thing that says amnesiac. And that just basically means this is a blank device. It doesn't have any config. So when you log on, you just log in with root. You'll see it actually throws you in something that looks like Linux. And the reason why it does that is because this is Linux. Like Junos is running Linux under the hood. Or is it FreeBSD? I don't remember exactly which version of what it's running. I'm sure we can check and see. There we can see there is a bit of a kernel as well. But if I just type in CLI, it will prompt us into the Juniper's command line interface. And now there's a few things that we need to do. You'll see it will keep spamming us with some auto image upgrade stuff, which we just need to disable quickly, and we just need to set a password for the device. Once that's set, you can kind of just leave it running idly in the background until you're ready to do some more configuration on it. So let's just quickly do that, otherwise this is going to annoy me when I log back in. So enter configuration mode, and then what we do is just delete chassis auto image upgrade. So that will stop these messages from happening because it's trying to just automatically obtain an IP and do some upgrade stuff. And let's just do a set system root authentication. Let's just set a password for the system. And now I can just commit the change. But there's cool stuff. You can do stuff like commit check. And then the Juniper will check if the configuration works before it actually adds it. And then if it succeeds, then you can commit it. You can even do stuff like commit and quit, and it just automatically takes you out of the configuration mode back into the user mode. But here is one of the ultimate cool things, and it's kind of similar to something you can do on Cisco as well. But you could do like a commit confirmed, and you can specify like minutes. And what this does is it will add the configuration on the Juniper, and then if you don't type commit again, it will revert back to the previous configuration state. Now this is kind of like a nice little time save or hack, if you will, that will just help you out if you ever run into some weird issue. But I'm going to leave the Juniper just for a little bit, just finish the BGP config on these MikroTiks, and then I'll go back to the Juniper and add some config there. So let's go back onto our MikroTiks. I still need to just log back onto them. So let's go on to PE1. Oops. And then what I could do is just a so routing BGP. Let me fill out all of this connection information from the provider edge, just for fun. So we can add it. I can set my ASS 65000. I could set my address families as IP, IPv6, L2 VPN, L4, L3. No, what am I doing? VPN v4, VPN v6. And then we can do stuff like our local address, and that is going to be 192.0.0.2. And I think this is where the prompt is going to bug out again, or the command line text is going to look a bit weird. But I can also now just set my local role is important, so local role. And if I tab this, we can see there's a few different options, but I'm going to specify just iBGP. I think there used to be an iBGP RR client specifically on MikroTik, but they took that away because you don't need that, to be honest. It can just be iBGP. And what else can we set here that's needed? Well, we need to set our remote address, which is going to be 192.0.0.1. And then our name, I can just set this PE1 to P1. Is there anything else that I need? I mean, I'm pretty sure, like I said, it can probably figure out what the remote AS is with some of the BGP messages. I just want to see if it actually does. It might fail as well. If it does, that's totally fine. We can just fix it. So I've added the config. Let's just have a look at the routing BGP session. If I print this, ooh, it actually did figure it out. We've got a nice little established session there. It's been up for like 4 seconds. That is so good. So what I'm going to do is just quickly do a routing BGP connection. I'm just going to disable this connection. And then I just want to run a quick, nice little Wireshark or packet capture on Ether1. So we can see how it learns those update messages. So this is actually really cool. This is where it gets like really, really, really cool. This is why I love this stuff. I love seeing stuff like this. This is really so nice to just see I shouldn't say in person, but just to see what it does. Can I make this capture look a bit bigger? Because this looks so small. Is there a settings button maybe? No. Okay, whatever I did there, that didn't make it look good. View, is there a... What about... Oh no, that even looks worse. Let me just bring this to 100%. Like, I can see it fine, but I think this might look a bit small for a lot of you guys if anybody's watching. So all that I'm going to do is go back onto my provider S1, and let's just do a routing BGP connection, enable 0. And then I should actually see BGP telling us a bit of information here. Nice. Okay, I'm just going to pause this quickly. I should really download these captures so I could show you. But let's have a look here. Let's just have a look at some of these TCP messages. But here I could see it's actually talking over port 179. And if you're not 100% aware, 179 is basically the BGP port. So here we see our first BGP message, and it's already doing a few conversations. Got some flags. There's options. Nice. So here we can see it's got an open message for version 4. It's telling us what the autonomous system is. and what the BGP identifier is, that is perfect. And if we just go further down, we see we get a bit more information what BGP is exchanging between these two devices. And it's basically just going to keep doing these keep alive messages in order to just keep the session running. Man, this is so cool. I really love seeing this, and it's like the first time you do it and you kind of like get it, and it's always so amazing to just see it again. Like, I love this about networking. Anyways, let's close the window, and my topology looks a bit different than when we started, but we've got BGP from PE1 to PE1. Let's just quickly fix up the PE2 BGP session as well. So PE2, and this is going to be admin blank, cancel the password, and then what we can add is routing BGP connection at AS65000 remote address 192.0.0.1. I'm not going to specify the AS, even though it's kind of good practice to do that, but as we saw, BGP figures it out on its own. That's really cool. We can set our local address, and here the CLI is freaking out a bit. So local address is going to be 192.0.0.3. My local role is IBGP. My address family, IP, IPv6, L2 VPN, VPN v4, and VPN v6. And the last bit is just the name, I think. So I could just call this PE2 to PE1. I actually think I still need to add the BGP session on the provider device as well. Let me just have a look. No, I did add it. I think I just left the name the same almost, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even see the name here. Let me check on Winbox. Routing BGP. No, I did update the name. I did. And if we look at our sessions are established. Local roles are good. Remote IDs are good. This is perfect. This is exactly what we want. This is really good. Really good start. So now we've got a basic core MPLS network. Core MPLS network running with BGP to a route reflector. And we could, like I said, just incorporate maybe a Juniper into this as well, so that you can kind of see MPLS is MPLS. It's got interoperability, if I said the word right, but it should work fine between vendors. It should work between a MikroTik and a Juniper. MPLS is MPLS. There's maybe I think even the experimental bits, MikroTik recently said they got fixed with MPLS. So you should be able to do stuff like class of service, but whether or not that actually works is a different matter. But let's log on to our device and have a quick look. Let's just figure out another IP address we might want to add. So maybe we want to add 12. So then 13 will be the provider, and 14 will be this provider edge on the right, which we'll just say is PE3 for argument's sake. So let's log on to the Juniper. So what I can do is just system ident or set system. You see, I was still in MikroTik mode there. So set system host name, and this should be our PE3. And what I could do is just set interfaces, and I think the interface was GE000. Let me just make sure. Yeah. And then I could just maybe make that .0 family inet address 10.0.0.14/30, and then family. What I should add as well is our MPLS, and I think like that's almost it that I need on the interface level. Show compare. And then what we could do is just set our MPLS as well. I think I just need to enable LDP on the Juniper as well. Even though with Juniper, ironically, I've got more experience now with the RSVP. But it shouldn't be too difficult to add LDP on a Juniper. So let's just add our MPLS section. So set, I think it's protocols, MPLS. And then we can set our interface, and this is going to be our GE0000. And then I can also just set maybe OSPF. And this is going to be in our backbone area. And I'll just specify the interface for this as GE0000. I also maybe want to just add a loopback interface on the Juniper. So set interfaces LO0.0 family inet address. I wonder if I need to go into the GE000.0 and add LDP as a family. Maybe. I haven't done it, so we'll figure it out now, won't we? So we've got our LO0, and our address for this is going to be 192.0.0.4. And let's just have a quick look here. And then I just want to add that interface, LO0.0. Oh, but this is where, remember I was talking about those Martian addresses? So I need to just remember how to also allow the Juniper to allow that. So set protocol OSPF area 000 interface, and then I just set that for passive, so that it advertises out that 192 address. But I think it's in the routing. Is it in the routing options? Routing options. I need to set the. No, it's not in the options. I just want to set it so it allows the Martian addresses. And I might have to just Google that. Like, it's one of those things that, there you go. Martians. 192.0.0/24 or longer, allow. So that should allow that prefix and those /32s to also function or work. So we've got OSPF, we've got our interfaces. I need to still add LDP, so I think it is set protocols, LDP, interface, and this is just going to be our 0.0.0.0. All right, I'm just going to add the config on the MikroTik as well, but I do suspect we might have some issues, and that is where the fun comes in, where I get to just troubleshoot a few things, where I get to try and fix and figure it out. Like that is kind of what's fun for me. So if I go back onto here, we just want to add sub. Oh, I think I don't have that anymore. So let's just do a interface or IP address add, and then our address will be 10.0.0.13/30 on our Ether3 interface. And then I should just add LDP on that interface as well. So MPLS LDP interface add interface equals Ether3 transport is going to be my 192 address. And then I just need to also do a routing OSPF interface template. Just export that or print that. All right, so what I can do is just edit the interface. So routing protocols, interface template, edit. And then I can edit 0, and then I can say I want to edit the interfaces. And then it's as easy as just coming in here and adding our Ether3 interface. Save that. And if I print that again, we should see our Ether3 there. And if I do an OSPF neighbor print, let's just see, do I have adjacency with our new link? We do. We can see the Juniper. We've got OSPF working to it. I wonder if the LDP is working. Let's have a look at our labels. So if I do a, what is it? MPLS forwarding table, print this. I am actually learning that label. And if I check from the Juniper side, show route, I am learning my Martian prefixes via OSPF, and I am learning labels on the MPLS, which is fabulous, which is really, really, really fabulous. And there I can see the inet.3, where it's learning these interfaces via LDP, which is what we want to see actually, because LDP should be used to be pushing the traffic. So technically from this Juniper, I should be able to reach any of the MikroTiks on their loopback addresses or their link addresses. So if I do a ping to 192.0.0.1, that works. And let's just source that from 192.0.0.4. All right, so let's just see, can I get to all of the loopbacks? Looks good so far. Can I get to the link addresses? So that should be 10.0.0.1. Yep. 2. Yep. If I can get to 1, I should be able to get to 5, since that's the provider device, which I can. I should be able to get to 6. And now the interesting one is, can I get to the link addresses between PE1 and 2? So that is .9, which I can, and .10. Very good, very good. So this means that we've added another provider edge into this network. Even again, this is not the most optimal, here's how you should set up a network type of deal. This is just a lab again, but we've got a Juniper integrated with these MikroTiks where they're talking on an OSPF and MPLS level. Let's just see if we can incorporate BGP into the mix as well, so we can get this provider edge 3 to talk to the P1 via BGP and do similar things. So what I can do is just head back onto the Juniper, go back into configuration mode, and then we can do a few things. So we can set protocols, BGP, and we can do a few things. We can add maybe something like a group, and think of a group just as the template that we just did on the MikroTiks. If you think about it, with templates you obviously can fill in some static information. So I could maybe call this route reflect v4 or something, and then I can just specify my information. So maybe I can set stuff like I need to tab this stuff now, but I know I'm going to set our autonomous system number, and I'm going to set the family as well, but we can maybe set the family so long, so we know it's going to be inet. And here you see there's that wonderful eVPN that just isn't supported at the moment by by MikroTik. There's actually a few more stuff in BGP that we can see here, but I can maybe set family for inet, and we could maybe make it like unicast, multicast, whatever, but I'm just going to set it for any, be very lazy. And maybe I want to set my inet-vpn any. Just think of this as the VPN v3 stuff, or VPN v4, pardon. It's a layer 3 VPN. And then we can maybe set our L2 VPN. I'll just set that as well. Signaling. I think you can just set it with signaling and that should work fine. And what else can I set? So we've got our group. I've set our address family. I'm not going to set the neighbor from here. I'm actually going to reference the group when I set my neighbor later. So what I want to set is my autonomous system. If I can just remember now how to do it, because I just hit a blank. But it will be in here. Actually, I think when you set the AS on the routing options actually. But here I can set it what the type is, and this is going to be an internal for IBGP. So let's just do a set routing options, and I think here I can set something like autonomous system, and here I can set my AS number, and maybe I want to set my router ID, and here I could specify my router ID. And if I do a show compare, what do we have here? So we've got a new BGP route reflect group, set the type for internal, we've set what families we want to support, and we've set our router ID and autonomous system ID there. So really the big thing that I want to do now in just this very basic setup is add a few more things like the peer, the neighbor. So let's do a set protocols BGP, and then I can just specify my group again, and then for the group I can specify a neighbor, and this is going to be the route reflectors address. And let's just see if there's anything specific that I want to set here. I mean, there's a few knobs we can turn or tweak, but I think just for a baseline to get the BGP connected, this should be enough. Let's just do commit check and see what it says. Address invalid for router ID. Oof. Alright, that's unfortunate. So let's just change the router ID to something more appropriate maybe. There must be a way to use that Martian ID as a router ID as well, but I'm not going to mess around now. So let's just do a 172.31.255.255. That should work as well. Let's just do commit check. And then all that I'm going to do is my loopback address, rename interfaces allo0.0, family inet address, and this address I'm just going to change from this to address whatever I made this new router ID address, and that should take it. Check, commit and quit, and that should bring us back up in this side, and then I can just quickly go back onto my MikroTik, go into my BGP, and I can just quickly, I think I can steal one of these sessions. Can I? You can't copy from here anymore? Oh man, that kind of sucks. Because I remember you could just quickly copy like a peer and reuse some of the elements. Okay, that's fine. That's another, small thing why you might not want to use the new version of Winbox. But let's have a quick look. So if I go back onto my P1, what I can do is just routing BGP export, routing BGP connection, add a connection, and we are just going to steal some information. So address families is going to be IP, IPv6, L2 VPN, VPN v4, and VPN 6. And then my remote address. And I'm just going to update that to whatever that new IP was. I think it's 172.31.255.255. And then I can just set my local role to IBGPRR. And I can set my local address to 192.0.0.1. I'm going to leave this remote AS blank as well. I'm curious to see if it fills in the details. Oh, I could have just used the template. It's one of those things that you only think about afterwards. Oh, I'm going to delete so much stuff now. I don't even know where I am. Oh, that is so bad. This looks so bad. I'm gonna have to redo this. Visual bugs like that really is annoying. Let me just do it through Winbox. So we can just call this P1 to PE3. We can select our template, and I can select the remote address as being 192 or 172.31.255.255. And then let's just set our local address as 192.0.0.1, and this is going to be an IBGPRR. And anything that's actually needed additionally, I don't think so. Let's just compare it quickly to some of the other ones. Looks okay to me. Yeah, looks good to me. Let me just see, do we have a session? And what do you know? We've got a BGP session to our remote device. I haven't added IPv6 on the Juniper, so that's why you don't see the remote address family available for it. So it's just something to remember. You can actually see what the capabilities are of the remote side, like what the remote side can actually do, which is nice as well. But it's cool to see that the BGP is actually up and running. I do like that. All right. I'm fairly happy with this lab. Now, I actually think I'm going to update the stream schedule because I realize now that in my ancient aging age that 12 o'clock is a little bit too late for me. So I'm going to do these streams from 9 to 11. I think that's what I was doing before as well. So that is how we will keep doing it. I'll do 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Maybe the gaming streams I'll do a bit longer, like from 9 to 12, but that's on Fridays that I'll do that. But for these labbing streams, 9 to 11 is good, because then we can just have a good baseline that gives us 2 hours to lab some things. And I mean, surprisingly, we've actually done quite a bit, even though I feel like I've been talking just so much. And it was mostly to Gareth, even though I think, Gareth, you might already be asleep. You might already be asleep. Hey, Zappy, I didn't see you there. But, oh wait, I did see you. You were in the chat a bit earlier. But Gareth, if you were still around, thanks for actually tuning in and interacting. It was pretty fun just chatting to you about the lab itself. I think what we're just going to do is unwind a little bit. So if there's any questions with what we actually did in the lab, you guys, anybody is still online, please feel free to chat, ask. I'll see if I can make these labs more or less publicly available as well. I really don't want to pay gate things like this. I do want people to be able to learn and access things. What I do want to see is if I'm actually allowed to share these Juniper images around, because I don't want to get into any weird like legal problems if I share them around, because some vendors are very finicky about sharing their software. It's actually illegal to like share Cisco images with somebody. So I just want to check if I can actually just share these templates. Otherwise, I'll see if I can find like a connection somewhere where people can just download it from, so that you can follow along with the labs as well, so that you don't feel stuck, and then you can download the templates and also actually do some things. So that should be pretty cool. So I've got all of this figured out. I might just quickly start shutting some of the stuff down. The Juniper, I will just do a graceful shutdown on, because like I said, if you just like turn that off, you just go boop, turn it off, it freaks out. It doesn't like that. It doesn't get happy with that. So let's do that. Stop this. Oh, I just said it doesn't like it, and then I legitimately just do it. I think it's because in my head I wanted to stop it gracefully. So I'm kind of hoping it didn't get busted, but it's fine. If it did, the config wasn't that bad to just rebuild it. Actually, let's just start it up quickly and see what it does. And then while that happens, I can just quickly shut down the MikroTiks. It's really no like issue to just shut these down. Although it is technically better to always just go into some type of menu and just do like a system. Can you shut down from here? Yes, you can. So let's just do a PE1 shutdown. Yes. Let's do a PE2 shutdown. Because if you think about it, technically, if you also improperly shut down even a MikroTik, some of this file system stuff can get corrupted. I mean, that's just how it goes. That's why some stuff just break when you just turn it off. Let's do system shutdown. Yes. And then the last one, which is this one, system shutdown. Yes. Doop. Off everything goes, and we are just going to make sure that that Juniper didn't get destroyed with that restart quickly. So where was that? This should be under a PuTTY window. I think it closed itself actually. So let's just go in here. And let's see what the Juniper's doing. If it's breaking, if it's not breaking, if it's happy, if it's unhappy, etc. And let me just go back into my channel in Twitch while it's starting. Just make sure I'm still muted. All right, so that's pretty cool. Is this thing still I hope it's not broken. But if it is, it's really fine. Like, it doesn't bother me that much. And I just maybe want to chat to you guys about what I might want to do on Friday, which is the gaming stream, because I'm a bit indecisive of what I actually want to play. But if anybody's ever played anything like Gothic or Gothic 2, it's like really, really janky. But it's a really nice role-playing game. You know, you like play this nameless hero and you can like defeat orcs and learn magic and be a rogue or a knight or all kinds of different stuff like that. But it's like made by a German developer, but it's so much coolness, I should say, almost. And it's not like edgy cool or anything like that. It's just this handcrafted adventure and story. It's just really fun to see like how janky it is. I'm sure if I stream it, people will actually see why it's so cool and interesting. It's not that it's this mega League of Legends type of thing or Valorant or whatever all of the kids play these days. Like I don't even follow along with that anymore. I think the most modern things that I play these days is probably stuff, and this is even old by standard. It's like World of Warcraft and like Dota 2. Like I'd say those are the newest stuff that I play, but I haven't played Dota in months. Even it's I love playing it, but it's such a frustrating game at times because since it's player versus player and you get random people in a team many times if you're playing alone, there's just so much conflicting egos and you never know who you actually get paired up with and things just go haywire. Like it's fun, but it's also frustrating at times, and I don't think that's fun to be streaming. Just see me get frustrated at some stuff. I think it would be more fun to see stuff like Gothic, which is kind of like a game that plays a lot like Dark Souls almost, but not in the way that it should. It's not because it was designed that way, it just happens to be janky. Alright, I actually think that is going to be it. Unless, hey, this device is back online. Although I see some weird messages. Let's just see if the device is actually booted up. So we can log in. Can we? Oh, hang on. Let me just do it one more time. I know that I changed the root authentication password, so that's why I can't log in. There we go. I didn't destroy the device. It's still working. Show configuration, display set. There we go. All of our config is still alive and well, so we don't need to worry about this device being destroyed. Although I should log back in and actually shut down properly. So let's just do a system or request system shutdown or halt. I think that does the turning off bit. Does it? I know there is a reboot as well. Now the halt should be fine. So request system halt should do what we want. Actually, there's a power off. Power off. Let's do a new, let's just do a request system power off. Yes, I want to power this off. And let's just hit a yes. All right, cool. So that is going to be it. I see that we had a few viewers tonight, which I do appreciate. I understand that things might be a bit weird since it is technically new channels and the platforms that I'm streaming on typically don't like to share, streams with people that come from new channels. But the main channel on YouTube that I have is at least like big enough. So I do think we can at least get enough constant viewers on both Twitch and YouTube to just make it basically interesting to be doing the live labs and the live gaming sessions. So I look forward to it. I actually had a ton of fun tonight, and I think there is a lot more stuff that we can go over and learn together. So thanks for tuning in. I will be signing out now, and I'll probably catch you guys on Friday. So have a good evening or day or morning or whatever it is. I am signing out.